I am testosterone, and I have been quietly leaving your body every single year since you turned 30. Not in a crash, not in a way you'd notice on any particular Tuesday. About 1% a year, taken so slowly that you will blame everything except me. You'll blame your job, your sleep, getting older, being busy, and every one of those explanations will feel more reasonable than the truth, which is that the chemical that built most of what you think of as you is being withdrawn on a schedule, and nobody sends you a notice. Let me be clear about what I actually am, because almost everything you've been told about me is marketing. I am not aggression, I am not confidence, I am not a personality. I am a steroid molecule, built from cholesterol, manufactured mostly in cells inside your testicles called Leydig cells, with a small contribution from your adrenal glands. And I don't work the way most chemicals in your body work. I don't dock onto a receptor on the surface of a cell and fire off a quick signal. I go further in than that. I pass straight through the cell membrane. I bind to a receptor waiting inside. Then the two of us travel together into the nucleus, where your DNA is kept, and I sit down directly on your genes and change which ones get read. That's my actual job. I am not a mood, I am a switch on your genetic code, deciding which instructions your body bothers to follow today. That's why I show up in so many places at once. Muscle protein synthesis, bone density, red blood cell production, libido, spatial reasoning, body hair. The pitch of your voice, none of those are separate systems that happen to like me. They're all downstream of the same genes I turn up. Now here's where the story stops being flattering. Getting me made requires a chain of command, and every link can fail. Your hypothalamus releases a pulse of a hormone called GnRH that travels to your pituitary gland, which answers by releasing luteinizing hormone. That travels down to the Leydig cells, which finally build me. 3 organs in sequence on a rhythm. All day break any single step and the whole line goes quiet, and the system checks its own output constantly. When my levels rise, the hypothalamus notices and slows down. When they fall, it speeds up. Thermostat, running in the background for your entire adult life. Remember that thermostat. It's going to matter later, and it's going to matter in a way most people find out far too late. So what actually happens after 30? The obvious part is that Leydig cells become less efficient, fewer of them, working less well, producing less of me per signal. That's the 1% a year everyone quotes. But that number is hiding something, and this is the part almost nobody explains properly. Most of me circulating in your blood isn't available to you. I'm bound up, carried around by a protein called sex hormone binding globulin. Locked to it, I do nothing. I can't enter cells. I can't touch your DNA. Only the free, unbound fraction of me actually works, and that's a small slice of the total. Here's the trap. As you age, that binding protein increases. So while my total level drops slowly, the amount that's actually free and useful to you drops considerably faster. You could run a blood test, see a total number that looks acceptable, and still be running on far less of me than that number implies. The headline figure looks fine. The usable figure is quietly collapsing underneath it, and your body has a second way of getting rid of me, one that most men accelerate without realizing. There's an enzyme called aromatase that converts me into estradiol, a form of estrogen. This is completely normal. Men need estrogen for bone health and brain function, and this conversion is how you get it. But aromatase lives in fat tissue. More body fat means more aromatase, which means more of me converted away, which means less of me left to build the muscle that would burn the fat. Sit with that for a second. It's a loop that tightens on itself. Less of me leads to more fat leads to less of me, and every turn of that wheel makes the next turn easier. Most men are somewhere on that loop for years before anyone puts a name to it. Then there's the one that has nothing to do with age at all. I'm built largely while you sleep. My levels climb through the night, peak in the early morning hours, and drift down across the day. That's why doctors test in the morning. That's why you wake up feeling one way and end the day feeling another. Researchers took healthy young men and restricted them to 5 hours of sleep a night for 1 week. Just 1 week. Their daytime testosterone dropped by 10 to 15%. In 7 days, sleep deprivation aged their hormone profile by the equivalent of 10 to 15 years of natural decline. You didn't need to get older, you just needed a bad week, which brings me to the part I actually want you to understand, because it's where good intentions do the most damage. You can inject me. Synthetic testosterone exists, it works, and for men with genuine clinical deficiency, prescribed and monitored properly, it can be legitimately life-changing. That's real medicine, and I'm not here to argue with it. But remember the thermostat. When you introduce me from outside, your hypothalamus reads the high level in your blood and concludes the factory is running beautifully, so it stops sending the signal. The pituitary goes quiet. The Leydig cells, receiving no instruction, shrink and stop producing. Your testicles physically reduce in size. Sperm production can stop entirely, sometimes for a long time after stopping, sometimes permanently. The thermostat cannot tell the difference between me and a copy of me. It only reads the number. Give it enough of me from outside, and it will happily switch off the only source you actually own. This is not a small footnote. It's the central trait of the entire decision, and an industry has grown up around men who found out about it afterward rather than before. If your levels are genuinely low, that's a real conversation to have with an actual doctor who will test you properly more than once in the morning. It is not a conversation to have with an advertisement. Now, let me kill the myth I'm most famous for. I am not the aggression hormone. That story is old, it's convenient, and the evidence is far messier than the headlines. In controlled studies, raising testosterone tends to increase status-seeking behavior, not violence specifically. In situations where generosity raises your standing, higher testosterone can make people more generous, not less. I don't make you want to fight. I make you want to matter. What you do with that depends entirely on what your environment rewards. Here's the fact I actually want you to leave with because it reframes everything else. Researchers compared testosterone levels across generations, controlling for age. They found that a 60-year-old man in the mid-2000s had substantially lower testosterone than a 60-year-old man measured a couple of decades earlier. Same age, same health screening, lower levels. The decline is happening to the population itself, generation over generation, separately from individual aging. Nobody has fully explained it. Obesity rates, medication use, environmental compounds, sleep loss, activity levels, all of it is on the table. None of it fully accounts for the gap, which means the 1% a year you inherit from biology is sitting on top of a slower slide that belongs to the era you were born into. I am testosterone. I don't announce my exit. I don't cause a bad day you can point to. I just gradually stop turning on the genes that used to run without effort and let you build a story about being tired or busy or older that explains it well enough that you never look closer. So tell me honestly, how many hours did you actually sleep last night, and how long has that been your normal? Put it in the comments, because that single number moves me more than almost anything else you could change this week. If this changed how you think about your own body, hit like and subscribe.